You're listening to Inclusive AF with Jackie Clayton and Katie Van Horn.
Good morning, Jackie.
Good evening, good afternoon. We're inclusive AF, so morning does
all of the times.
All the things.
We're all about all the times.
Midday, tea time, snack time.
So we haven't recorded in a couple of weeks, and we can talk a little bit about that. I don't want to talk too much about that. We can talk a little bit about that. But we were just catching up and decided to go ahead and push record because we have a couple of things that we want to update folks on. I'm going to go first. Is that cool?
Absolutely. Actually, we should also mention this is probably the first week in probably 2 years. Like we didn't talk this week on a regular basis. No.
Yeah, it's.
I think it said hi, text, and then like hi, and then I'm busy. And
it's because we were super mad at each other because it's Mean Girls Day.
It's Mean Girls Day. It's October 3rd. Just remember, on Wednesdays we wear pink.
Luckily neither of us is wearing pink today, although it is your favorite color. So
it is. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to share a little bit, and Jackie, you're going to cry. I'm going to try and keep it together. So
okay. I'll do my best.
We're going to start off by talking about grief, which is fun, a fun topic.
Yeah.
But I think this is why we haven't recorded. So I just want to be transparent with folks. So my brother-in-law passed away a few weeks ago after a very hard battle with cancer. And so we are trying to keep it together over here.
He had his homecoming.
He has transitioned to a better place, and we are very happy about that fact. But the last few weeks have been very hard because, yes, he was my brother-in-law, but he has been married to my sister for 23 years. So he's my brother. And so I have been trying to be as brave as possible and have been trying to help my sister through this because it is rough. And I think, you know, as I have talked to people about this, and I know we all have been going through some grief and some grieving of some sort or another through, you know, losses, a lot of different losses that have been going on the last few years. And I think it's important that like we talk about grief as, you know, as hard as it is, because I think when people think about grief, a lot of times they, think it's something you get over, or think it's something that you, at some point the switch flips and it's just, it's not there anymore or whatever. And one of my very good friends, her brother died last year, and she is still in the thick of it.
My husband just tried to throw me a tissue, and turns out he tried to take my eye out with a paper towel. Thanks, honey. Yes, I think you've been handling it with grace, and I want to thank you for showing me how to grieve, because I appreciate that. That's part of, I know it's been really hard, and watching you going through this for years has been hard, but also showed me how to support another person and do this with grace. And then a friendly reminder of how you connect with people and how to have your full feelings. There were days, just so you know, there were days where Katie's like, oh, I'm doing all these things. And it's like, yeah, you want to cancel those, Katie? Katie's like, it's really sad, and I don't know if I can get through the day, but I have to talk to 5 CEOs about how
how they need to get their shit together.
That's a great place to go. Yes, get your feelings and put it into your work. Like that could have been really dangerous. You did a good job.
Thank you. And I think for me it is, and I think the piece that I will say about this is I have always been told that I'm a little bit more stoic. And this one hit hard. And so there was no being stoic through this, even if I had wanted to. but I also would say, like, I think it's so important as I, looked around at my nieces and nephews at the different pieces of what would you call that? The rituals around the burial, etc.
Yes.
Seeing my nieces come together and, hold on to each other while we were closing the casket, and seeing, my nephews pull together as as Dan's son was not doing well. They just really were there for each other. And like, it was so cool to see, as painful as it was cool to see all of them come together and just be there for each other. And that's what, from a family perspective, that's what we want. That's what we want our kids to take away, and know that it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel the feelings. But I would also say, like, my therapist does not get paid enough money.
That's right. I felt that.
Not that I'm going to pay you more, doctor, but just FYI, if you're listening. And I'm being, like, I'm joking when I say that, but I will say, the tools and the things that she has helped me with in the last few months have been so helpful, just to keep me, to your point, able to be functioning and able to be getting on phone calls with CEOs to say, hey, in the most loving way I can, get your shit together.
I can appreciate that.
Yes. So I wanted to share that, just because it has been a minute since we've posted an episode, and it's because of that. And but I want to talk about some other cool things. So I just shared with you, and I want to, share with other folks that are listening. There is the University of Southern Florida has a diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate program. And they did this probably about 3-4 months ago. I would say maybe 6 months ago, but they have opened up a new course. And so if you are interested, I think you just go to, like, the University of Southern Florida website, and you can look up DEI, and they have it there. It is free. And for those of you who are just getting into diversity, equity, inclusion, or even if you've been in for a while and just want to see how are other folks talking about it. So Jackie and I think, are both going to sign up for it, just more from just kind of seeing what else is out there. And both of us are very committed to continuing to learn and grow our skill set as we go through this journey. And then the biggest update.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I always tell people, like, they'll say you're a diversity expert, and I'm like, no, I'm a diversity student. I just share with you what I learn. So
absolutely,
I don't think there is a point where I'll say done. I just don't see that in my future and seeing.
Right. But I also think that's just diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like, there's no done. Like, it's always, like, I was talking about inclusion with something, and I'm like, inclusion is like an everyday action. It's not we're inclusive now, so we're all set. No, you have to continue doing it. But the most exciting news, folks, Jackie and I got to see each other.
It was so great.
And have a steak bigger than our heads.
Right. And have a dinner that was more than most people's car payment, but delicious. Just the same. They thought they were going to get off easy at Three Forks, Austin. We made him work for that.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was good.
So good.
Thank you again for dinner.
Absolutely.
Jackie and Todd took me to dinner. So I guess this means, like, when the next time you guys are in Arizona, I need to, like, take you out to, like, Ocean Prime or some other.
It's the only places where I trust steak is Arizona and Texas. The only places. Otherwise, it's like, it's all okay.
Yeah, I'm like, steak. Well, there's this place called the Stockyards that's like old school steaks. Not old steaks, but old school steakhouse.
Listen, the next time you come in town,
all 300 years old.
They've been aging for 55 years.
They're jerk-like in a way, but it's very delicious.
There's a place that I went to with William Tincup where his family took him. And if you go to it, it looks kind of sketchy when you get there. And you're pretty sure that they tell somebody, the person just like goes to the cow. Like you have to wait a little bit.
Mhm.
I think there were some people in the oldest profession there, and the steaks are like $20, but they are huge and delicious. But I'm telling you,
Very fresh.
they were so fresh, and you definitely don't pay for the service, but so good. And it's like A&J Steakhouse, like literally, like it's the only thing on the side of the road. Best steaks in
That's
Texas.
awesome.
So
That's
next time.
awesome. We'll go there the next time I'm in Texas. But I will say this, for those of you who have not gone to Three Forks in Austin, highly recommend. What was our server's name? Because he was very sweet. I don't remember. Todd will remember, but I don't remember.
Right.
There was also a lot of wine, to be clear.
There was a lot of wine, very delicious.
Very delicious wine. Lots of things. So Jacqueline,
Yes.
you had a topic that you and I like totally like stole the thunder by jumping in on my stuff. Tell
No,
me.
you didn't. It was just one of those moments. So I'm very excited in my role as VP of Talent Acquisition and Diversity.
Whoop,
Um,
whoop.
but it's just interesting because
At
Textio.
you got to go like this when you do your Textio sign. Perfect.
The sweatshirt.
So
I just acted
FYI,
like it was
you
casually
guys,
up there.
Jackie just got an important role and is taking over the world. I don't know if you're aware.
It feels like it, but it's just
VP of
interesting.
Talent and DEI.
It's so interesting how we've always said, like when we go into organizations, you can almost tell sometimes like what training the person before you went based on the suggestions that they make, and or if they've actually gone through a full program. So one of the things that was interesting this week was in talking to all of the teams, I did a listening tour. I still feel like everybody, when you join an organization, should do a listening tour for about a month, where you're not even offering anything yet. You're just taking it all in, making your assessment so you know how you need to move forward. So what was interesting was, and this is important for people to recognize, as you're building out job descriptions, I noticed there wasn't a lot of requirements. And so as I was talking to people from the engineering team, they looked at me really strange. And I was like, the studies show, and it's an antiquated study that probably needs to be redone, but the study that we have right now said that women wouldn't apply if they didn't meet 100% of their requirements. And so my statement was, you have to have requirements to qualify for requirements. So we need to have requirements. And so people were kind of acting as I was going through my listening. I didn't think that was something that I couldn't share during the listening tour, only to find out that the previous, somebody consulted that they shouldn't have requirements because then people who were underrepresented wouldn't apply for the jobs. And I was like, no, that just means the only people who apply for these jobs are white men. They're the only ones that would look at this and say, like, I qualify, because they don't read the requirements anyway. So that's the only group of people. Other people are looking for things. And I realized this is a lot for a lot of organizations. And I just wonder how many organizations have gotten the information and just kind of added to what the experts say.
Right. And so the Hewlett Packard study that you're referring to, it's actually that, men, if they meet 60% of the requirements of a role, will go ahead and apply. Women feel like they need to meet 100% of their requirements. So the actual research, what it tells you is that you have to use language
that's inclusive.
That is inclusive. So things like, hey, I'm going to go be a recruiting ninja. That's not something that most women are going to identify with. But
or
also
if you're a superstar.
Right. Things like that. But I also think using pronouns, like if you refer to the best candidate, he will do X, Y, and Z versus he, she, or they, or the person. So using like the right language to be more accessible and more inclusive. I did just learn a new one. And this is one for online, I think is really important. So using Tahoma, Arial, or Comic Sans, which please don't use Comic Sans because I hate it, but Tahoma font and Arial font are the best ones to use from a accessibility, like readership for folks who have dyslexia, etc.
I didn't know
And
that.
also not using italics, using bold.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just found that out, which I thought was really interesting. And so, as we talk about accessibility, just another thing to keep in mind on your, I think a lot of ATS systems, it's kind of predetermined what the font will be, but just knowing that and, maybe changing it if you can.
Did you know for deaf or hard of hearing and you use hashtags, you need to use caps in the hashtag so that, because people didn't know that don't know that either.
It shows up as words. Yeah.
Right.
Versus just a jumble of letters.
Right.
And then also I think there's just so many things that, and you're probably in like fire hose mode.
Oh, fully.
Of like the different language. Obviously Textio is kind of the queen, excuse me.
The royals
around, how to actually do this the right way. But it is interesting that they got that advice, like don't use requirements at all, because there is a whole, like you putting nice to haves on there. Correct. You shouldn't do that. And that's more because of exactly what we just were talking about is like, then people think that's actually a requirement, not just a nice to have. So how did they interpret whatever they heard to don't put any requirements at all? Because
that was being told from an HR professional, not necessarily a diversity professional. And I think what people need to recognize is, especially the way that candidates now search for jobs that they should fit in, is much the same way that you would search for a pizza. That's what I explained. I was like, if you go out of town and you're looking for a pizza, if I was in Palm Springs and I wanted to find a pizza at a hotel, I would Google pizza, Palm Springs delivery, or maybe I'd add near me. But understand that. So if I'm looking for a job, I would look for, diversity and inclusion recruiting strategist. I'm so laughing for the people that are watching on YouTube. They can see that we're both like literally in the middle of a full allergy attack in our homes. I think it's our dogs. Like we're both sneezing and coughing. And for those of you that are listening, we're fine. Nothing's happening. Nothing to see here. But I have noticed that with jobs, I think it's what's sad is the only way that I would have known that is because of working here. And I also have kind of been a proponent that you need to have a TA person who can partner with a diversity and inclusion specialist and can't do it alone. Those things can't live separately because of the things that people get and the messages that people share that aren't experts. Unfortunately, in our industry, there are some things that really seem true. They seem factually true, but they aren't, that get passed down. Like, you have to have a certain kind of statement in your job descriptions or they're illegal. No, not true. Don't have to do that. They have options, or we have to make sure we don't say that we encourage females to apply. That's against the law, or no, you can actually do that as long as you can prove that that's been a group that's been largely there's facts, but there's also laws and legislation that has been built around these things that are really long. So you don't have to guess. No one has to guess on these things. And if somebody tells you these things, just do your research. When people tell you statements and broad sweeping statements, you need to do your research.
Amen. And I think it's interesting you're talking about the statement, because I will say that if you go out and look at like career pages and on organizations' websites, one of the things that I always encourage folks to do is put their EEO statement or whatever version of the EEO statement, put it on that career page. And don't just do it as that legally required language, which I think a lot of people
copy paste from
no,
Dole
the EEO
Department
website.
of Labor.gov.
Yeah.
No.
it's interesting because I actually was just doing some research around some companies that do this well. And there are actually quite a few.
By the way, I told you because my husband gives like 0 F's about the things that I do, and it just feels like he's a part of it. And he made me scrambled eggs with ham, and I was like, okay, I'm about to
Good job,
with
Todd.
Katie,
Looks
and I
lovely.
knew.
Looks perfect.
Katie said it looks lovely, so he's sitting there being cool, pisping me. Are you pisping me for some eggs?
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
yeah.
Psst, psst. I need to give you your eggs. So I just did this research actually on the EEO statements or what should you put on there. And there's a couple that I found really interesting that I just want to share with you. So HubSpot, obviously we love Katie Berkey at HubSpot, and they do a great job. Theirs is however you identify or whatever your path, please apply if you see a position that makes your heart skip a beat. Come join us and help us build a global company where we're all proud to belong. Confidence can sometimes hold us back from applying for a job, but we'll let you in on a secret. There's no such thing as a perfect candidate. HubSpot is a place where everyone can grow. So however you identify and whatever background you bring with you, please apply if this is a role that would make you excited to come into work every day. I love that one.
Love that. I love that. You know who else I love? That one. Wait, I want to talk about that for a minute. Okay. What is your favorite part of that? Because I think that is fabulous, especially just whatever way you show up.
Right.
Is so important.
Yes. So I love the confidence can sometimes hold us back from applying for a job, but we'll let you in on a little secret. There's no such thing as the perfect candidate.
Boom.
I think that that kind of calls out that whole piece around women not being as comfortable applying if they don't have 100% of the requirements.
Yes. And I teach in one of my courses about that, the difference, because there was one that I saw and this is, most of these are going to be versus that standard EEOC copy pasted from HR. We, follow all the legal rules. We won't discriminate based on gender. But I love that. And it makes you feel more confident that you can be yourself throughout your whole career. Like you're safe to not mess up. They recognize that people have those, are different. Everybody shows up differently. There's no perfection there.
Yeah. Dell's, Dell Computer Company, theirs is very HRE or legalese, but they take it a step further, which is why I liked this one a little bit. All employment decisions at Dell are based on business needs, job requirements, and individual qualifications without regard to race, color, religion, or belief, national, social, or ethnic origin, sex, including pregnancy, age, physical, mental, or sensory disability, HIV status, sexual orientation, gender identity, and or expression, marital, civil union, or domestic partnership status, past or present military status, as a protected, family medical history or genetic information, family or parental status, or any other status protected by the laws or regulations in the locations where we operate. So I thought that was interesting because they take it way further than a lot of EEO statements. I am going to say this, and I mean, obviously I have an affinity towards GoDaddy.
Yes.
I like this one because they go through we will not discriminate based on these things. When it came to gender identity or expression, they also including against any individual that is transitioning, has transitioned, or is perceived to be transitioning. So they're, again, taking this a step further, that EEO statement. There was one that I thought was very interesting and it made me chuckle. I don't know that I subscribe to this one, but I thought so workable. Their CEO actually has his statement, and his statement is, your gender, your gods, your sex life, your skin color, or your big shot uncle don't make a difference here. If you're smart and good at what you do, come as you are. So I thought that one was it gave me a chuckle.
I want to read you my absolute favorite is Cisco.
Okay. Yeah.
So it says, why Cisco? We connect everything. people, processes, data, and things. We innovate everywhere, taking bold risks to shape the technologies that give us smart cities, connected cars, and handheld hospitals. And we do it in style with unique personalities who aren't afraid to change the way the world works, plays, and learns. Hashtag we are Cisco, where each person is unique, but we bring our talents to work as a team and make a difference, powering an inclusive future for all. We embrace digital and help our customers implement change in their digital businesses. Some may think we're old, 36 years strong, and only about hardware, but we're also a software company and a security company. We even invented an intuitive network that adapts, predicts, learns, and protects. No other company can do what we do. You can't put us in a box. But digital transformation is an empty buzz phrase without a culture that allows for innovation, creativity, and yes, even failure if you learn from it. Day to day, we focus on the give and take. We give our best, give our egos a break, and give ourselves, because giving back is built into our DNA. We take accountability, bold steps, and take difference to heart, because without diversity of thought and a dedication of equality for all, there is no moving forward. So you have colorful hair? Don't care. Tattoos? Show off your ink. Like polka dots? That's cool. Pop culture geek? Many of us are. Passion for technology and the world changing? Be you with us.
That's awesome. I love that. I am going to say use one other example. And
Good,
it's
because then I can
Facebook.
eat some breakfast.
Yeah,
So-
eat your eggs. So Facebook has another one, or has one, and it is fairly, again, legalese. But one of the things they added on to their statement that they have posted on their careers page is, if you need assistance or an accommodation due to a disability, you may contact us at accommodations, blah, 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 at facebook.com, or you may call us at et cetera, et cetera. And so they're not just, I think we all know, the folks that are in the HR world know that, if someone requests an accommodation during the interview process, we are legally, kind of obligated, unless there's some sort of reason why we cannot. We are obligated to provide accommodations. I like that they're taking it a step further and not just saying, okay, yeah, in the background, we'll do it. They're actually, kind of putting it out there that if you need this, we want you to apply. We want to be able to provide that accommodation, that kind of thing. So I just thought that one was really good and really interesting.
I think it's important because most hiring managers don't know what to do and freak out and just will reject the candidate.
Exactly. So I really like that. The rest of the statement is fairly standard, like any other, EEO statement, but I just thought that was really good. And I like the fact
Todd
that
again.
I know, I'm trying to
so
keep
good
going.
at ignoring him. Keep going. Okay, I'm back. I'm out.
Yeah. But I think it's, we talk about EEO statements, or we talk about, the application process, and there's just so many things that have shifted and are changing regarding job postings. And obviously the requirements is one of them, really being thoughtful about your requirements. And I think one of the other pieces that I've been talking about quite a bit with clients is the requirements around education, because we know that for so many organizations, there's just like these standard, you must have a bachelor's degree, or you must have, 42 years engineering experience as a level 1 engineer, which, is interesting because a level 1 engineer might not have 42 years experience.
But the irony is not wasted on me that it is at the same time that white men are the lowest group demographic for actually obtaining bachelor's degree. The irony is not wasted on me.
That's true. That is a very good statement. And I actually just had this, I just had this conversation this past week, and it is funny because I'm like, you are where you're seeing the degrees going. And so, yes, the irony of,
all of
maybe
a sudden,
we don't need to worry about degrees.
Black women have degrees. It's the number one group for obtaining. So all of a sudden, oh yeah, we don't need those. Awesome. Because people literally have lost their lives over this, and literally had situations where that prevented them from going to school. I mean, both my kids are at HBCU, and still, even at an HBCU, there are professors and people that say, you might have a hard time because of your degree from this. Like, it's that same information that you get back, like, oh, you're going to have to work harder, and we're glad that you're here, but almost encouraging people to go to a PWI, even within the ecosystem of a HBCU.
PWI, please.
Oh, sorry, predominantly white institution.
We.
Because part of the reason that PWI actually came up, just side part of trivia, is because we weren't referring to any other organization and making one stand out and not feel included, except for historically Black universities and colleges. You might also hear HSI, which is Hispanic Serving Institutions, but the way that they do that is not in diversity world, which we include necessarily, just because it's very, very broad term. It's if 25% or more of your campus has people that are of Hispanic or Latinx descent. And so I think like UCLA is a Hispanic serving institution, like Tech UT.
I think ASU is as well, which makes sense just based on the demographics of Arizona.
But they're not underfunded. That's the difference. Like that doesn't mean that they're underfunded and needed, know. And most of the other part that's interesting is that most of the colleges, a lot of the colleges on the HSI list are public colleges and universities, whereas I don't know all the ones that I can think of off the top of my head as far as HBCUs or historically Black college and universities are private entities. So they don't get that funding in the first place. Just another fun fact of why everybody needs to support HBCUs.
Thank you.
But I digress. And put Tabasco on my eggs. There you go.
So what did you just say?
And put Tabasco. I digress and put Tabasco on my eggs.
Oh, I thought you said, and I'm going to Mexico. And I was like,
hey,
I'm not sure what that has to do.
Not quite ready for that.
I'm on board. Let's go.
Full stop.
I like a good trip every once in a while.
Yes.
Can we talk about one other thing that has come up recently in a few discussions with folks?
Absolutely.
Salary data on job postings.
Yes.
What's your take, my friend?
Well,
I'm not going to let you eat right now. Sorry, you're going to have to wait till your eggs get cold.
Well, as you can, if you've ever seen me, I can hold on at least 5 minutes, not withering away. So my take and organization that I represent now is it's fully posted. And what's interesting is we have the range. There's like a science behind the range. What has been interesting is that we hire at certain states. I'm new. In fact, I probably should read to see if I'm even allowed to say the name on our podcast. I don't know. I think I'm good. Knock on something.
Don't say the words, but it's right behind her if you're looking at the YouTube channel, FYI.
But one of the things that it's posted, one of the things I noticed when I came on board was that we are in 8 states, one of which is Colorado. Majority of posts, they ask in Colorado, it's a law now that you post those salary ranges or make them available. And so a lot of organizations, rather than just post it, they have opted to not hire. You can Google remote not in Colorado, and almost every listing on LinkedIn, it'll say not hiring in Colorado. I'm encouraging, I was like, I really maybe we should put on our postings, 100% remote distributed team, even in Colorado. Yeah. But I think it's important. The other thing that I've noticed that is I don't even know how to feel about it from a technology standpoint is what's discouraging as we go to remote teams is the competition for tech talent and how skewed those roles are compared to every other role in your organization. You'll notice a level 2 software developer, or level 1 software developer, can get paid $130, $150, whereas a level 1, an HR business partner is like $40.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it difficult for everyone.
Yes. And I also, I mean, I don't know why, I don't know why we can't also just accept the fact that these roles are actually important and we need to pay for them. Like,
They
that's the piece
realize
that-
it when a lawsuit comes up now, don't
Uh-huh.
they?
Yeah.
And then it's like, sorry, I couldn't go to that training class because it wasn't in the budget. So I don't know what to tell you.
Not sure what to tell you. Okay. So I think from when I think about salary and whether you should post a range, whatever you want, whatever it is that you want to use, I just think it's so critical because I also think the amount of time that it's going to save you as a recruiter and as an applicant. Yes, sign me up because I don't want to have a discussion for hours and days and whatever, and then be like, oh yeah, sorry, that's not going to work for me on either side. Like, let's just get to it and actually get the right person in the role. So that's the other piece I'd have to say.
We need to tell candidates how to advocate for themselves and the role and what they're looking for. Like, it's good to have for everybody to post just to know that if you're getting priced out of the market, because if you're getting a high salary, that can be not great, right? We call it attached by the golden handcuffs in HR, where you hate your job, hate your company, have to stay because nobody else is going to pay you that salary. And because it's too high, versus it's too low, but you don't know, so you don't ask for what you're worth to skew all those things together. And I think it's important. I wish that if you were like in the top, if you were in like the top,
sorry, the lights just flickered in here, and I was like, "What the heck is going on?"
Because see the UFO. Wait, she's inside.
The ghosts are here. They've arrived.
If you, I wish they would make the top 100, like Fortune 100 companies, post their salaries. Because then you kind of know where you're at. We shouldn't be comparing versus each other as much as we can look at other organizations that are in our same field, because that's what's disturbing. So, and what I mean is, like, I am at a startup, right? And so it's like when you're at a startup, there's a certain understanding that of how you get paid versus if you're at big tech. But then for some reason, people don't think about that when they're applying for jobs. It's like, I need to be earning $1 million regardless of job location or money that you're bringing in.
Yeah.
And what you can bring to the table is hard to tell from that interview process. So
yes,
I think it's helpful to see what the range is, even though sometimes the ranges are pretty wide.
Right.
But then you can also say, I think what has happened is we put people against each other saying what's fair, and we don't always look at what's going on in our organization and how we pay based on what our needs are as an organization.
I'm going to say something. I'm going to go off topic for a moment, but I'll bring it back. I promise.
Okay.
So, I'm single. I don't know if you're aware, Jackie. You might be.
Well, I hope so, because if not, I haven't met somebody in a very long time.
It's weird. So I, in my history of dating, I've always had this like weird thing of feeling uncomfortable, being treated like when we go out to dinner or whatever, like when I'm on a date, I feel like I should pay, or I should pay half, or I should, whatever it might be. And so like having this like belief that like, almost like sizing the person up from how much do they make versus how much do I make? And so should I be paying because I make more, or because I have this perception that I make more, I have more money, or whatever it might be, which is a very odd thing to think when you're dating someone. But that's just who I am. I'm weird. I don't know if you're aware. And so it's a similar thing for me. And I think for a lot of people when they're approaching companies about their salary. And especially I think for
That's
women,
right.
where you go, oh, well, maybe they don't have enough money to pay me this much, or, oh, wow, I probably shouldn't ask for that because it's, that's putting a lot of pressure on them. And like, for me, I do think there is this, you have to push and you have to ask the question. And the worst thing that can happen is they say no.
That's right.
Or the worst thing that can happen is you don't get another date, which That probably
But you
is
know what
okay.
else, Katie? Because sometimes you do all the things too.
Mm-hmm.
This is judgment. Sorry, we're on camera and on this. Katie does all the things. Katie will go and she'll do things at night, and you do work really hard and you're doing all these things. Sometimes I wonder if you feel like because you're single that you have to work certain hours and certain times. Because
I'm not
wonder if
comfortable
that's
with this
ever-
line of discussion.
I just wonder, I observe as I'm exhausted and saying, oh my God, I'm going to bed. There have been times where Katie's like, oh yeah, I've got to do one more thing. I've got to do one
I
more
have 22
thing.
more things to do before I turn off the lights.
And I am older than you, but we are in
I
the
like a
same
minute and a half.
range.
Okay, settle down.
So I'm like, okay, I'm tired. Aren't you tired? Aren't you tired? You don't have to
Perpetually.
do all the things just because, you know.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think it's, I also think that's a whole,
It's a different
dude,
show.
go. I'm like, again, maybe you just need to come to a therapy appointment with me because it's a whole thing.
Yes. Can I go to a whole? Somebody said I don't want anybody to speak on my behalf. And I was like, I've got literally 4 people that can speak on my behalf, regardless of the topic. I could say, Katie, can you be Jackie today? Oh, well, Jackie would say this. And it's like one of those things where I think I would love to go to a therapy appointment and say, I'm going to be Katie today.
Yeah, I think that would be a really great idea that like, these are things that you need Katie to do.
And it'll say, I think I've been hiding things from you, therapist.
I think you need to be aware of these certain things in case Katie hasn't mentioned them.
By the way, I'm not allowing you to speak to my therapist because same.
Yeah. But it would be a hoot because I'm sure my doctor would love that. I think, yes, I am very driven. But I also think, I mean, that might have something to do with the fact that I'm like the youngest of 7 kids and there's a lot there.
You think? Yeah, maybe.
Possibly. I do put a lot of pressure on myself, but I would say like, I think that I do believe that like for a lot of folks, when they are approaching certain conversations, compensation being one of them, there is this, do I really deserve this? Should I ask this? And there is a little bit of that pressure of, I don't want to put them being the company into a weird spot that they have to tell me no, or that they, are like, wow, that's way too much. And I mean, we've had conversations about compensation for projects for, doing this as a consultant. It's the same thing where I do evaluate or kind of take a look at what I think is needed or not needed, or, is acceptable or not acceptable. And so there are some things there that, yes, I think there's assumptions made that shouldn't be made, but that's also why, like just the idea of putting the salary range out there, because I think it's really critical to have the salary range out there so that everyone knows what you're getting into. But I think that also then helps from a pay equity perspective, as we talk about pay equity and the baggage that women carry throughout their careers of always being paid less, that there's no longer hey, what's your current salary? I'm going to give you 10% more than that. Instead, it's here's the salary range for the role. And it's, your salary will be within that range. So
I think that we talk about systemic racism, but there's more to the system than just racism. And one of those that that has been passed down from generation to generation. Yes, thank you. Is that part of the reason that men paid more is because they had families, and then they had kids, and then they had a spouse that wasn't going to be part of it. And that system is still in place, whereas that's part of why people haven't caught up, because it's like they've been basing it since then, instead of doing drawing a line in the sand and doing it all evenly. And I think one thing that's very interesting is that Salesforce did that, and they said we're going to pay everybody equally, but they've had to do it 3 years. That's how embedded the system is. Like, okay, everybody's fair, and then they're like, okay, it's review time. Wait, how come you're still paying men more? Like, everybody was even. The work was balanced. So it just shows you how embedded
those damn recruiters
the system is.
You know how those damn recruiters are.
I do. Oh, I do.
So I know we just went kind of all over the place on this episode.
It was good. I think this is going to be everyone's favorite episode.
I can imagine that it will. I cried. So that's always a win right there.
If I cried, it just like, yeah, I think I cried.
That's
in the
just
most
like
recent
a
episode.
Tuesday.
Yeah, they're like,
Oh,
wait,
it's
you
Sunday
just
morning and
cried.
Jackie cried. Yep. That feels right. That feels totally right.
Kleenex, stock
But
just went up.
yeah, we're gonna go ahead and call this one, I think. And thank you all for listening. What is your, I know I do this too, and you love when I do it. What's your one takeaway, Jackie? Do you notice I also always make you go first, so I have a minute to reflect on what my
so you can
answer's
have
gonna
your
be.
yes and. See, love that.
Exactly,
I never get a yes.
yeah.
One day I'm gonna have a yes and.
Yes.
I think the one thing to take away is that I'm gonna pull it back, and for job descriptions, that not having requirements are good, and having an understanding of what you actually need for success. Make sure when you're writing your job descriptions that you are considering what you actually need. My challenge for everyone this week is to write a job description from scratch. Just write it from scratch. Don't copy and paste anything, and come up with an air quote EEOC statement that is resonant of your organization. I think those things are important. And let us know, like on one of our social pages or via email, if it's made a difference to the people that you are able to bring into your organization. How about that?
Love it. Yes. And I'm just kidding. Mine is going to be salary ranges. Please post your salary ranges. Just make that something that you do as an organization. I think it's another step in the right direction to make sure that we're really being thoughtful about equity, and we're really being thoughtful about where we have maybe fallen down in the past and how to correct that for the future. And then the second thing is that grief doesn't go away. And it will get you when you're least expecting it to. So just be prepared, and have your people, so that when you are going through it, you can pick up the phone or shoot someone a text message and just be like, hey, let's jump on a Zoom and drink all the cocktails or talk about it or whatever it might be. Whatever.
And maybe the fourth thing I want people to take away is to get a partner in life who isn't afraid to embarrass themselves when they know that you're starving to death.
Yes.
I think that's a litmus.
I mean, where are my freaking eggs right now? I need some eggs. Hey, anyone? I need to teach Penelope how to make scrambled eggs.
Good luck with that.
She did actually. She just jumped up on the stove last night as I put her paws beside the stove as I was cooking last night. And I'm like, no, we're not. This is not a good game. This will not end well. All right, folks. Thank you all so much for listening. We're back. We're back in it. We have some awesome guests coming up. We're super excited about. So stay tuned, and thanks for being here today.
Boom,
this is Katie Van Horn.
This is Jackie Clayton. Yippee.
And this is the Inclusive AF podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
I love that.